What's up YouTube? Capital G here talking about Maxx and going second in this video and asking the question, is it even worth it anymore? And I understand that this is two different video topics, but they are directly related to each other, so I don't really see a purpose or a point of making two different videos. And I am not insinuating at all that Maxx is like a bad card now or anything like that. I'm really talking about Maxx in the context of, like, is it still worthy of main deck spots? Is it still worthy to be in the main deck as opposed to just, you know, being in the side deck? Because players running Maxx in the main was actually pretty common. I think at the surface, the semi-limitation of Maxx to a lot of players will kind of just go as, oh, it's really not that big of a deal. But I think it is a huge deal, and I think it fundamentally changes the way that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is going to be played at the competitive level, especially for someone like me who always just routinely used to choose to go second to get the extra card. Now, Maxx, what I liked about the card was it was one of the things that just allowed people to feel safe when going second, because it was the defensive measure that if you were going second, almost always your opponent had no way of stopping. I guess if they somehow had like Herald of the Arclight in their opening hand, then I guess that they could stop it or something like that. But for the most part, it was a play disruptor that could be played from your hand, that could be used while going second, that generally left a lot of the meta decks in shitty situations, especially if you were playing three of them. And I think that Maxx moving forward was going to be even stronger than it is right now, or than it was in the past. Like, if you look at the Duelist Alliance era, Maxx was definitely a strong card then, but it could be dead against like Cleefort, and turn one against Teller Knights it wasn't super strong. And even in that era, it was a card that was really solid, you know, past like turn one, like turn two, turn three, deep into the game. It was still a really solid card against like Teller Knights when they went Call to Haunted into Altier, or when you knew Necros were going to when they were looking to ritual summon more than a couple of times, like maybe they were going for the Kaleidoscope Unicorn play, and then, you know, they wanted to Trish you, and maybe you were going to like negate the Trish's effect. Just drawing those extra cards was like really good, and it could definitely keep you in the game or get you back into the game. But I feel like Maxx now is one of the cards where like it's so necessary if you're going to choose to go second to have turn one, because if you look at the meta decks and you look at what is perceived to be the meta, these are decks that like to set up huge fields turn one, and obviously they do that through special summoning. I mean, if you look at ABCs, I watched this video by Asian Eyes last night, and he had a guy who made Gear Gigant X, ABC Buster Dragon, and Cyber Dragon Infinity all in one turn. And it's like, obviously that's a super overwhelming field to try and deal with. But if you Maxx maybe off the Silver Gadget or something like that, okay, then you put your opponent in a bunch of, like, you give them a bunch of options, but all of those options are really shitty. I mean, the options you basically give these meta decks when they want to go off and you Maxx them at the right time, you know, Burning Abyss, if they special summon a Farfa out of their hand in defense mode and you just Maxx them, they're like, damn, what do I do here? The same thing can be said about DDDs. DDDs are going to be coming out in Pendulum Domination. That's just January. It's right around the corner. That's another deck that doesn't really like to stop. You know, DDDs can make fields of like Siegfried, Crystal Wing Single Dragon, maybe like a Titanic Galaxy on top of that, and it's like, those are overwhelming fields. But you put these decks in a box. You put them in a position where they either have those three options. Option one is that they completely stop and they have a really, really fractured field, a field that's just not good. I mean, if I summon Farfa in defense mode off the special summon effect and you Maxx me, I mean, I guess I could just set like a Fog Blade and, you know, like maybe something else, and that's it. But that leaves a bunch of monsters. That might leave two more monsters in my hand. That's a really not, like, that's a really bad field. You might just run over the Farfa, I banish a monster, which, I mean, ends up being a neg one, my defensive card. Like, I can't get my full setup. Or you give them the option to just keep on going. They can make their super good field. They can make their, you know, Beatrice plus Dante, maybe get a Fog Blade or something. They can make their field of CDI plus ABC Buster Dragon, but at the same time, they give, you know, you're going to end up giving that person who Maxx'd you like 5 or 6 cards. And at that point, you're essentially saying that if I can crack your opening board, you're just conceding that you're going to lose. Like, let's just say, hypothetically, that I had Regeki and it just outed your board. Well, you're pretty much just done. So at that point, yeah, you may have a couple of cards in your hand to fall back on, but you're not going to be able to outgrind me, almost certainly, because you've given me 4 or 5 cards from the Maxx. You went first, so you didn't have a battle phase, so you didn't do any damage to me. So it's not like you're going to be able to use those couple of cards in your hand to OTK me, generally speaking, I'm going to outgrind you even if you have the better grind deck. Like, it's almost certain that you are going to lose that game, even though, again, just using Regeki as an example, a lot of these fields are kind of anti-Regeki. Obviously, ABC Dragon, I mean, this guy can basically uncontact out, and when the cards are in the graveyard, you can just make another ABC Dragon. You guys know Dante and Beatrice kind of float upon destruction. Cards like Siegfried and Cyber Dragon Infinity are basically cards that can just negate Regeki outright, but I'm just using that as a general example. If I'm able to out your board, you're obviously at a huge deficit because you gave me all of those extra cards. In addition, I have the battle phase and I had the draw phase, so that's just another +1. So the advantage is obviously heavily on my side. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, Cap, well, what does this really have to do with Maxi at 2 and 3? Is it really that big of a deal? And yeah, it actually is a huge deal. Like, if Maxi was at 3, I wouldn't even be making this video right now, but I went to this website. It just shows you a bunch of probabilities in the context of a Yu-Gi-Oh deck and, you know, opening with certain cards and whatnot. It's actually really simple, but if you look right here, if we're running a standard 40 card deck, right, and we're running 3 copies of Maxi, our opening chance, or our chance of getting Maxi and our opening hand, is 33.75%. So basically 1 in every 3 games. Like, if you have just a full duel, game 1, 2, and 3, probability says one of those games you're going to open with Maxi, and obviously you're just going to disrupt your opponent, ideally put them in a shitty position, and you should be able to win, or at least you should have the strong advantage in winning that game. Even if you're like me, you go into the danger zone. I know a lot of people get tilted if they see anything higher than 40 cards. Oh my god, it's so terrible. Even though all my regional top 8s were with 41 cards, but whatever. Look, even if you play a 41 card deck, you still have over 33% chance. That's really what you want. If it's over 33% chance, probability says that when, you know, games 1, 2, or 3, you will get it at least one of those times. That's just what probability says. But if you take Maxi at 2, what it is currently at, it changes dramatically. It's a huge difference. So let's say that we can only run Maxi or 2 Maxis, because we can only run 2 Maxis. Man, now we are down to 23.72%. This is under a quarter. This is under 25%. So not even 1 in every 4 duels now, probability says you will not open with Maxi if you just run 2 copies of Maxi. At least it won't be in your opening 5, which is what, I mean, that's where we want it. You know, if your opponent goes off with, you know, if they go off with Burning Abyss and they're able to make their Dante plus Beatrice and all this other junk, like, Maxi doesn't help you as your 7th card. Maxi doesn't help you when Blue Eyes want to soul charge and, you know, activate Silver's Cry and return it and do all of this special summoning. Maxi doesn't help you if it's your 8th card in your deck. It just doesn't really do much at that point. So Maxi at 2 now, guys, it's under 25%. I mean, this is less than 1 in every 4 duels, and I think at this point, is it even really worth it? I'm not saying that obviously you can't still open with Maxi. I'm just saying probability dictates, or probability says that it is more likely that you will not. And I think that that's really huge, because one of the benefits of going second was not only getting that extra card, getting the battle phase, but knowing that if you ran Maxi against most of the meta decks, you felt pretty comfortable. You were going to get it at least 1 game in a duel, and you probably were going to have a huge advantage going into that game. The second thing I want to talk about is the advent of Pot of Desires, and the fact that this card can fit into a lot of the meta decks very easily. I mean, some people have argued that this thing can fit into pretty much any deck. I mean, if you're running a deck where a lot of your cards are at 3, and I've always believed that Pot of Desires is just a card to enhance your plays. It makes good opening hands great. It makes decent opening hands good. It makes great opening hands godlike. It just makes everything a little bit better. It's kind of like it's like cheese. You know, cheese makes everything a little bit better. Pot of Desires is a card that it adds you that simple +1. It gets you to 6 cards just like the guy who goes second has, and it does it at like, it doesn't really limit anything that you can do. Yeah, you have to give up a quarter of your deck, but as opposed to the simple +1s, we know the Stratos clones like Magic Spectre, Bambanku, and maybe you want to use Teller Knight, Deneb, or, you know, what's it called, Sage of Eyes with Blue. The simple +1s that get you your 6 cards just like the opponent has, they all require your normal summon. And a lot of times they require you to put a very weak monster on the board, one that can just easily be ran over, etc., etc. But Pot of Desires just allows you to get that instant +1 without committing anything. So you can just play your instant +1 desires, and you can still go into your ridiculous YOLO, you can't see me, you know, turn 1 lock board and not have to worry about it. Like, who really cares, you know, about a quarter of your deck if you're able to put ABC Buster Dragon, Cyber Dragon, Infinity, and a Solemn Strike set? Like, you're basically going to win at that point. Who cares about the quarter of your deck? So I think that going second is just, oh man, I think because of the advent of Pot of Cupidity, or Pot of Desires, excuse me, where going first is now stronger, plus Maxx now not being nearly as consistent, I think going first is now harder to counter. I just don't know if like going second is worth it anymore. And I don't know if running Maxx in the main deck at all is even worth it, because the probability just says you're not going to get it as often as you want anymore. So you guys let me know. Do you guys think that Maxx is still main deck worthy? Because now that I'm not going to get Maxx 1 in every 3 duels, as probability says that I should, I don't really think that it is main deck worthy anymore. Now, I don't even think going second's that great, because I used to look at going second and think, man, I get an extra card. If they try and go off, I can probably Maxx them. That's my defensive card that they can't stop. I get the battle phase. I get to know what they put on the board to counter it. But now it's like going first kind of got buffed by this card, and going second kind of got nerfed by this card going to 2. So yeah, I kind of think I won't really be going second anymore, because it just seems to be not as good as it was, you know, just a little while ago. So I'm also a little salty because I found a build of Utopia that I absolutely love. Like, this is the build that I would definitely play competitively. Obviously this is not really legal until Invasion Vengeance comes out, because I'm running Treat Toad, and without Treat Toad the Bahamut Shark is pretty pointless, so I'd have to adjust it if I was going to go to like a regional next month or whatever. But this was definitely the build that I was set on. But as I've spoken in the video ad nauseum, without 3 Maxx, I'm not gonna run 2 Maxx in the main deck. So like, I would obviously move these to the side deck, and now I'm left with kind of a gaping hole of 3 cards. I mean, I guess I could put Upstart in as like a filler card, but where do I go from here? Do I add in a 3rd Twin Twister? Do I make the deck, like, do I put in more monsters? Maybe an Inari Fire? Like, where exactly do I go? Because like Maxx allowed me to play the deck and not panic when I went second, but you know, now going second is just so damn scary. So you guys let me know if you have any suggestions with my Utopia deck as well.